Blyth overall is an exceptional school that offers a lot of diversity and individual support to ensure the success of each and every student. With many unique, interesting, and dedicated teachers, the learning experience at Blyth is truly catered to the individual, thus creating a totally new and involving learning experience compared to other schools. However, having this kind of learning experience is cool and all, but what if you couldn't actually attain it? I'm not talking about this from an economic point of view, but rather from a disabled point of view. Blyth has many positives and negatives, one of the most present negatives being its accessibility issue to those who are not able-bodied. If we were to look at the physical structure of the building, we can discover many issues a non-able-bodied person could face whilst trying to enter. In order to combat these challenges, I have decided to attempt and try to create change to better the experience of non-able-bodied people at Blyth. After a few interviews with many staff members, including Jessica, Matthew, and the principal, and multiple teachers as well, I have decided, and we have decided, that the need for a more accessible school was needed. In addition to this, Matt also supported this claim with personal experience and mentioned in many students that he had to turn down due to the school not being as accessible as they hoped for the individual disability. If we start at the front of the school, we can see that the slab of concrete we call a step can be a hazard to not only a disabled person, but also an able-bodied one as well. For example, during the winter, the sidewalk and the step itself can become quite slippery, therefore becoming a hazard. You can only think about how hard this can be for a person with a cane, for example. Therefore, the school responded with a makeshift wooden ramp that was implemented to solve this. However, it carries its own risks and liabilities and is incredibly unstable. And also, in addition, during the spring, the ramp is often removed due to a lack in need for it, making it not a permanent option for visitors. So, in order to solve this, my first idea is practical and relatively affordable, and it can solve this issue. If we were to incorporate a ramp into the slab of concrete itself, it would allow for easier access for a wheelchair or a cane, and would lessen the risk of injury. It would be more stable due to its integration into the step, and offer the choice of stairs or a ramp for means of entry. The fact that it is also a permanent alternative would mean that it can always be accessible to those who need it, and not require a staff member or any sort of assistance. It's also the cheapest to install, costing around $500 to $900 to remove and pour the slab, making it a true possibility. Proceed in this, the next challenge would be the door system or the door frame. The width is slightly too small to reliably fit a wheelchair without any problem, and also it can restrict flow due to the narrow nature of the door itself. Leaving the door open can be problematic during the winter to solve this issue due to the cold, and in the summer it's basically the polar opposite. It would be letting out heat. So keeping the door open at all times to allow easy access would be somewhat problematic and would cost a lot of money through heating and such. If we were to change the door, however, to be automatic with a handicap button, it would limit issues with entry and still offer insulation against the weather. If we were to introduce an automatic door system, it would allow for easy flow of traffic and synergistically work with the ramp itself. However, this can be expensive, valued at around $1,500 for the system plus around $500 to $1,500 for installation, but I believe it's a necessary step to better the accessibility of the school, especially for the main floor. In addition, some positives of this would be that, of course, it would allow for easier access for those who have a wheelchair, for example, but the installation itself wouldn't require much space and could easily be pushed aside into the side area where the chairs are, because realistically it's only a power box and a few cables. It also wouldn't increase the security risk because the locks can be upgraded and are just as safe, and it's basically the same door, just with an automatic button on it. With these two simple ideas together, can create a totally new and better environment for those who are disabled, making sure that the main floor is totally accessible for those who need it. Finally, we get to the real problem, which is access to the second floor. From my multiple interviews, I gathered that the first floor rooms were mainly prioritized for larger classes with more people and couldn't be interchanged. I also saw the resource room, but that idea didn't work either because it was usually booked for private classes. The option of an elevator was a highly considered option as well to deal with this problem, but I knew that would be impossible due to the physiological structure of the building. So, so naturally from there, I decided to suggest something that's a lot more simpler and just as effective. I suggested a stair lift. Many may think that a stair lift is meant for older people, but it can still be used in this scenario because the function is similar and it's even more affordable. From there, I decided to go to kind of a smaller scale kind of lift that could still give the same function as the elevator, but for a lot cheaper of a price. I suggested a stair lift. So many think of a stair lift as mainly used for older people, and it's usually placed in a home. However, it can still achieve the same goal as the elevator, but in less space and for a cheaper price. They're considerably cheaper than an elevator, costing around $7,000 depending on the complexity of the stairs. Aside from that, they're also easy to install because they're a rail-based system that attaches to the actual railing of your stairs. At first glance, this may seem like it takes up a lot of space on the stairway, but it actually doesn't impact its actual traffic along the stairs that much. They are retractable and can be easily tucked away into any little corner, allowing for easy access and quick use. To better limit the toll on the mainstream traffic, allowing the disabled person to leave 5 minutes early to avoid a rush will give ample time for the person to reach their destination free of stairway hazards and the rush of the people trying to get to their next class. They can be also modified to curve around the bends of the staircase, allowing for better movement. After pitching these ideas to multiple staff members, such as Jessica, Matthew, and Michael, we all decided that the options are reasonable and obtainable with enough effort. People with disabilities should be allowed to attend a school of their choice without having to worry about being able to simply enter their classrooms. Despite your wealth, if you pay for a private school, you expect things like this to be inherent, and that your kids should be able to access the building itself. And you shouldn't have to go to a different school to seek other options and more accessibility.